been testing out the new Spitfire Audio BBC Symphony Orchestra library and was wondering what was going to be a good test of its capabilities, as often you don't find limitations until you're well down the line with one or maybe a few compositions. And because the first impression anyone will have of this is that it sounds wonderful, I thought it was worth digging into it a little bit more. I mean, you've got all the elements under the same hood and haven't all been treated equally, using the same mics in the same room and have access to the same ambient mics. Everything just fits together perfectly and it sounds really rich and full. And I've literally been getting quite emotional putting this together this weekend, as some of the passages are simply stunning. I'm absolutely staggered how good this can sound with very little effort. So I thought, what would be a good test of a full symphonic library, and thought something everyone's familiar with, maybe recorded by a symphony orchestra, and something that's a bit of fun for the weekend. And then it hit me, Star Wars. I don't know what I was thinking, but once the thought was in my head, I couldn't not give it a go. And if you've ever actually really taken any notice of the music, you'll know just how devastatingly brilliant it is, and it gives plenty of scope for testing any orchestral software. It's got some lovely passages, nice use of woodwind, percussion, it's got the big hitters like the brass stabs and lots of variation on the strings. So I thought it was a really, really nice little idea. It's got some really complex passages and it's got some really nice sort of quiet bits and really big, loud, boisterous bits. Let's just find a couple of those. And then maybe a bit of a beefier one. I didn't realise quite how much this sounded like an old western until I came across this bit. But yeah, fantastic stuff. Those brass stabs are great, aren't they? So yeah, it's got some really nice little intricate bits as well with the woodwind. Let's just solo the woodwind for you in this passage. It's just beautiful. So yeah, it's got loads of lovely little bits in, so I think it's a really nice way of testing the software. And I've made this over the course of a pretty busy weekend, so I've not taken it to the nth degree, as it were, because the speed you can get good results is almost as important as the final product, as we all know. So if something sounds amazing but takes too long to produce, well, you're never going to use it. In other words, what can be done over a weekend between buying a Christmas tree, sorting out a few presents, dropping the kids to various clubs, going to the school Christmas fair, and cooking a lovely big Sunday roast for us and all our friends. So I've got to get the Sunday roast on in about an hour, so I'm rushing through this. And I've got it as far as I think it needs to be. So bear that in mind and don't judge it or judge me too harshly. I mean, it's not perfect. I'm using an old 2012 12-core Mac Pro. It's maxed out with the RAM, so it's quite old, but it's a really capable computer. So it's got 64 gig of RAM, which is plenty, I hope, but then the library's 500 gig. I had to buy a new hard drive to install the library. I've got a copy of the score, and there's a whole bunch of MIDI files you can get online. Just show this site here. So just typing into Google John Williams MIDI files, all this pops up on johnwilliamsfree.fr. It's there's so many things, and there's so many Star Wars fan sites that there's loads of stuff you can get, and I did think it'd save me a load of time. But little did I realise that the MIDI files I started using was full of errors. It was packed full of like wrong notes, double notes, shorter notes, hidden under longer notes, and all sorts of mad velocity. So it might well have been quicker in the end to play each part myself. But it did enable me to instantly get stuck into the library and start playing the articulations, messing about with the settings, saving instruments with less articulations to help save memory and stuff like that. I'm not sure how successful I was with that, but at least I now know where everything is. One thing that doesn't mention in the manual is this is the preset edit, is this little button there. It took me ages to find that. So in the violins, for example, you can go and turn off the stuff you're not using. Well handy. And in the settings, you can go into audio and start changing the preload size and the buffer size and stuff like this, because I did start having some issues with dropping notes and stuff like that, which was really annoying me. So what I've ended up doing is I've got a lot of this now on MIDI file, as you can see here, and then I've got some stuff at the bottom that I've bounced down just to save the computer, and so I could hear what was going on without dropping notes and stuff. I'll run through what I did here, as it taught me quite a lot about the library and what I had to do to get around its way of working. And I started off by mapping each of the instruments to the library using full sections, actually. So if we go to the trumpet, for example, just show you this, you get a lead and a full section, then the lead, then a full section. But I left it with the full sections, And the only time I actually attempted to use a lead was when I was doing the sort of binary sunset. It's this bit where Luke Skywalker's looking at the two suns going down, but I couldn't find the MIDI file, so I was writing it myself and thought, it was just taking too long. So I loaded each of the parts. So I'll just run you through what I've got. I've got flutes and flutes part 2, piccolo, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, trumpet, trumpet 2, French horn, 2 trombones and a bass trombone and a tuba. Sounds like a song, doesn't it? Percussion, I've got vibraphone, orchestral harp. There's nothing on that one. Glockenspiel. I've got cymbals. I've got timpani somewhere. And on the strings, I've got violin 1, violin 2. Again, split like the trombones and the flute and violins. Had to split them into 2 on some sections, just because they're playing 2 different parts, and the legato mode was the best way of doing it. And legato mode will only play in mono. Got violin 2, viola, cello, and bass. And these are ones that I've already bounced down, you can see. So I've used a few articulations along the way, and the ones I was having most problems with actually was the brass. I was trying to get a nice big full-on brass sound, and then I discovered, let's have a look at the French horn, this long SFZ and the long cuivre, is that how you say it? And they're basically a horn section welcoming the king. You get the idea. But with a legato, you can't play chords. And marcato, all play a standard length. So sometimes, especially with the trombones, I wanted something with a bit more power, and I hadn't discovered these, which are really good. But I'll go into that in a minute. I think then, let's just have a listen to some of the instruments, shall we? So should we start off with some flutes and piccolos? And as I said earlier, I've split the flutes into 2 parts, so I could use the legato mode. These have been bounced down using the main mix, so there's no extra reverb, none of the ambient reverb on there as well. Shall we listen to, again, just to some of the oboes and the clarinets? So the oboes, clarinets and bassoons, I've sort of left them as is. I've just left them on the sort of, I think it's long legato, because they don't really feature prominently in the track. So I've spent very little time on these actually. Just didn't require it over the course of this mental weekend I'm having. So shall we listen to the trumpets then? And again, I've split these into 2 for similar reasons. So here on trumpet 2, I've got some little sort of trills playing. And on the main lead, taking a look at the French horn then. Let's have a listen to it playing the main theme. And then some sort of blasts for the entrance of the king. I could probably do with going through and changing the levels on that a lot as well. As I say, the MIDI files that I brought in have got levels all over the place. So I'm changing from articulation to articulation. I've done it here. You can see that's gone from staccato, spiccato. So you can see here the articulation's moving. And down to the trombones. Again, I've got 2 sets of trombones just at the very intro because I was having trouble with the intro. But actually, most of the trouble I had with this was because I'd not used it before. So let's go from the start. And you can see down at the bottom here all the different articulations have been testing really. And then just stuck on one. Again, for this piece, the long SFZ worked a treat. Let's have another listen. So I'm having difficulty recording this, recording the screen and playing all these instruments. And you can see that new articulation coming at the bottom down there. Let's have a listen to a little bit of tuba then. Timpani. Shall I listen to a bit of timpani? It's not the most interesting, but... And on the snares, I've used sort of a mixture of snare rolls and snares and... Vibraphone's nice as well. Well, they're all nice. And the harp plays almost all the way through this. That's beautiful, isn't it? And the Glockenspiel. Let's try the big hitters then. Let's have a listen to violin 1. Violin 2. Oh, so we go, 2 violins playing at once. And now a viola. Yeah, see why I've had a mad smile on my face all weekend. That's amazing, isn't it? Let's just go back and do the cellos then, or the celli. Nice, and the bass. And I didn't have to do much with the bass. I think I just left it on legato the whole way through. Same with the cello. So let's have a listen to the brass section on its own. Pretty good. Sounds really nice. I mean, again, I can probably go in and make that sound better, but as I'm trying to just sort of do this quickly to show how you can do stuff that sounds really good quickly, I think that works well. So I'm going to play the whole piece, and as I say, I've not played each instrument perfectly. I could probably do with going back in and adding some more expression and fine-tuning some of the notes, shortening a few, lengthening a few, but for about 10 hours work, I think it's pretty impressive. And I do realise that trying to map anything onto an existing composition is a bit of an odd way of working, as generally you write with the tools you've got available, which can dictate the texture of the final piece. I'm going to start from bar 54, because the start of this is so iconic that I'm never going to get it to sound, or no one's ever going to get it to sound sort of identical. So I'm going to start from 54, where it starts being sort of really nice and orchestral, and then it moves on to the main themes, but it'll build up to it anyway. And you might hear some sort of discrepancies in timing, whereas, you know, when you're playing a sample, sometimes you need to adjust your playing according to how the sample works. And obviously using these MIDI files hasn't done that. I've tried to adjust for that where I can, where it's been really obvious. And whoever's put this together in the first place has sort of blended between phrases, and the timing goes out in really, really strange places. But I think it sounds nice enough for these purposes. I think it sounds really good. So here we go.